Welcome to Nonprofit Impact on MeetAdvisors.com. I'm your host, Megan Dugan-Bassett of Dugan-Bassett Consulting. In this show, our goal is to really dig in and help nonprofits learn about effective tips from leaders in philanthropy, public policy advocacy, and direct service organizations. Today, I am welcoming Evette Cardona. Evette is the Vice President of Programs at Polk Bros Foundation. Welcome, Evette.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. And Evette is a Chicago native who has a degree from the University of Chicago in Social Service Administration. She also worked as worked with teen mothers and has worked as a teaching artist before joining Polk Brothers years ago as a program intern, correct?
Right.
She's also won numerous awards for her work in the nonprofit sector, so we're really happy to have her with us today. Evette, so you're the Vice President of Programs at Polk Brothers Foundation. And you also have actually been involved with a few nonprofit startups, from a small one, Amigas Latinas, to a large one, the Center on Halstead. So you have a unique perspective on the challenges facing nonprofits and the foundation sector.
Sure. Yeah.
So can you just tell us a little bit about what are some of the challenges or trends in the foundation sector right now, and how might that affect the funding that they're providing to nonprofits?
Sure. Well, I think the biggest challenge to foundations today continues to be the challenge that it's always had, which is that there's only so much money that they have and there's so much need. And actually, in fact, I would say today there's even greater need, because if you and I were having this conversation in 2007, it would be a different conversation right before the economic sort of crash. And even Polk Brothers Foundation was on this trajectory to give away a lot more money, and so staff were really excited about, kind of being able to push the envelope on certain things that we wanted to try, or more entrepreneurial stuff that nonprofits were wanting to do. And then 2008 came, and it was night and day, right? So I remember back then, fortunately our board of directors mandated us to stick with our current grantees, keep our funding level. I always say that the level grant became the new increase, right? Because everybody else was cutting. And so that was great if you were a current grantee, but it made for many long years of just kind of being in this holding pattern. And meanwhile, and I remember back then them saying that where the stock market would be, where it was in 2007, it probably wouldn't get back to that until like 2014, right? So here we are now in 2014, and so yes, we are sort of back to that height again.
Right.
But what has happened in between 2008 to today has really redefined sort of the normal, right?
Okay.
So unemployment, the foreclosure crisis, just neighborhoods, just disinvestment, all the plans that folks had, continuing crisis of schools and all that, that just has rewritten, right, sort of the new normal. Meanwhile, now the foundation world has finally the same money it had 7 years ago, with all of this change, this kind of profound change that has happened in people's lives and in communities' lives. So to say that we have the pie is this big and the need is so great, the need is so much greater. So I think foundations are really challenged to leverage the resources they have, right? By, for us at the foundation, it's not necessarily about funding the best grantees, but it's funding the right grantees, right? Who is doing the best and right work for the need that is out there today? And so, that's on the foundation side that I see a trend being, again, having to pick the right foundation, the right nonprofits that are kind of hitting the sweet spot, right? So,
and how do you decide that? Like, what kind of decisions are you guys making to figure out who those nonprofits are?
Right, so we fund in 13 different program areas, right? 5 broad categories, right? Because our funding is answering the question, what do Chicagoans in need, Chicagoans affected by poverty, what do they need, right? And what they need are strong communities, strong families, quality education, quality health care, and arts access and learning, right? We also fund some enhanced capacity for the nonprofits that are doing this work. And so when the economy crashed and we sort of put things on hold, we started to keep a wait list of all the organizations that were still out there doing the good work that they were doing, and doing even more work with less resources, but we couldn't bring them forward for consideration. So we kept this list. And so as we started to, as the economy has sort of gotten better, and our board is wanting us to see who else is out there, we're having to look at not just who fits into those kind of categories, but sort of who hits the sweet spot. What are our priorities? So say for education, right? I mean, there are so many, right? After school tutoring programs, college prep programs. So our priority is principal leadership and development, as well as college access and completion. And remember that the college prep programs of the past, it's not enough to just be a college prep program, right? Because it's kind of easy to get into college, and I say that with quotes.
Right.
Staying there, right? Having students stay there and complete, that's the rub, right? So there are a lot of new college access, and it's called college access success and persistence programs, right? Are working to get students to really complete college so that they can get into the workforce and that. So we're looking at college, we're looking at the principal leadership, right? Because if you can affect a principal in a school, right? Look at imagine the Chicago public school system. You have X amount of principals, and you have 10 times that amount of teachers, and you have 100 times that of students. So if you can affect the principal and make that principal really good at their job, you can affect the whole school culture.
So you're looking for the programs that have kind of a smart way, a strategic way of impacting things in a way that will spread. So it's kind of like a multiplier effect.
Absolutely, absolutely, right. So it's not so much about we're serving more kids, or we're serving more unemployed, or we're serving more homeless people. It's how are you serving them? How are you being smart about it? How are you leveraging your resources? And increasingly, I think, how are you interacting with other nonprofits who are your potential collaborators, right? In our enhanced capacity program area, we're looking at a lot of multi-grantee projects that are happening. So Chicago Jobs Council was funded to look at some benchmarking work, right? We're funding sort of legal services overlapping with homeless youth services, and how does that work? So that it isn't just about nonprofit A needs board development, strategic planning, fundraising, help. It's about sort of multi-grantee, collaborative work, kind of the collective impact model that's kind of big now, to really be smarter and more strategic. I mean, the other trend I'm seeing is that the nonprofit world, it's really matured. Right, so you don't just start a program because there's a need, right? Sort of the 70s and 80s models, right? It's really about understanding how nonprofits work. I want to say almost a business side to it. I mean, even though businesses fail too, but it's just being smart, understanding what is the field grappling with, what is the literature telling us, what is the evidence-based work that is out there, and then kind of opening your door, right? And besides the fact of having to raise money constantly, think about staff. How do you use volunteers? Again, how do you really leverage the resources that you have that are never enough to address the need?
I love that what you're saying, because I feel like it really,
that's talk about this.
No, it's a big priority for us. So it's a big priority for us at Dugan Bassett Consulting is that we want people to be really smart about how they're starting their programs and really think, I'm not going to start something just to start it. I'm going to really figure out what are the best practices out there, who's done it, who's not doing it, and kind of have that background.
And that's really tricky. I mean, when today we are faced with two of the most kind of profound social impact occurrences, right? Undocumented folks and immigration reform, and what's happened with Ferguson and throughout cities around the country, not just urban cities, right? The response has just been unbelievable. So how do you address that, right? How does the nonprofit sector address that? How does philanthropy address that, right? And really understand that this isn't about gadgets and widgets and trains running on time and highways falling apart. I mean, this is people. Right. I mean, the bottom line for nonprofits, for philanthropy, is people, right? And all the emotions and all the family and community and how we define what makes community
Right.
in that. So it's an exciting time to be in the nonprofit field, but you have to be smarter.
Yeah.
Because again, the pie is gonna maybe go about this much bigger,
Right.
and the need is just so much greater.
What are some of the big mistakes you see nonprofits making?
I think not understanding the work that they're doing and the need that is out there and how they can address it, but more importantly, coming to the foundation or a foundation when you have to understand that when you know one foundation, you know one foundation, right? So that understanding how that foundation does its work and chooses its grantees and what its guidelines are and its theory of change, and not being able to then kind of help foundations achieve their mission as well, right? All nonprofits are sort of mission driven, but so are foundations, right? We're nonprofits as well, so how does what you're doing and then seeking a grant from us also help us achieve our mission, which, you know, can sound a bit elitist, and yet again, when I have $1.25 for, you know, $25 need, it only goes so far, and every organization is doing good work, right? I mean, I will have conversations in a week that have to do with homelessness, and then youth development, and then the immigration reform, and then policy stuff, direct service, and all of it is good, right? And bless this sector, but we can only fund so much.
How do people? So I know that most foundations have something on their website that describes what their areas are and what their target area is, but you're describing a level of detail that might not come up on websites. So how do nonprofits find out these details and figure out if they're a good fit?
Good question. Right. Well, the hope is that foundations become more detailed in what they're looking for. For Polk Brothers, for instance, in the last, I'd say year, 15 months, we've kind of tweaked our program area guidelines and we've added language. It's not like we've changed a lot, but we've added clarifying language so that folks can better understand what we're looking for. And as we go to, continue to sort of revise our program guides and because we consider ourselves a learning organization in our annual report and look at our website, we want to make sure that that information is clearer, balanced by, you don't want to be so, what's the word, dogmatic or prescriptive, thank you, that, that you sort of snuff out innovative ideas that are out there. So on the one hand, I feel that foundations just need to be more transparent and clear. I think the way folks can find out about that is, look at who else are we funding and who do you know that gets our funding? And who are the program officers that your colleagues have also dealt with? Because kind of when you know one program officer in a foundation, you also know sort of one person, right? So it's about, doing your homework. I think when folks come to a foundation and want, to know, I think it's a fair question to say, what are you looking at? What are your priorities this year? But I really like when people know what the foundation does, right? Because then I know that they've done their homework, and so I think it's about talking to others in the field, Googling us and seeing what we're involved with. We may not be as out there as some foundations, and certainly if you're going to the Chicago Community Trust or Chicago Foundation for Women, who raise money in order to give it away, as community foundations, they might be out in media and on the internet different than independent foundations, family foundations, right? So yeah. And the Donors Forum, I said the Donors Forum is a great place to become a member of, so that you can access the resources, the workshops, the opportunities where funders are present, and just sort of talk to folks.
Okay. So we're running out of time, so I wanted to see, are there any big tips you would give? What are the few things that you really wish nonprofits would do when they are applying for funding, or if they're looking to increase their grant size? Is it possible now? Are there ways to do that?
Yeah, well, as the economy is getting better, one would think that. I think again, know the foundation, know your sector and your field, and what is sort of at the cutting edge of that, because homelessness is still present as it was decades ago. Unemployment's still present. All these issues, youth development, after-school programs, healthcare needs. What is the cutting edge? What's the evidence-based practice? Know that so that you can educate your funder, right? Know what the funder is interested in, by also doing your own due diligence and homework about that. Cut the fluff in proposals and reports. Read the question and answer it. Tell us what you've done, not what you're going to do. I mean, I always say everybody's gonna save the world, right? How have you addressed what the issue is, what the problem is? And that's not just because you did X amount of people did X amount of things, X amount of times a week. Those are outputs. What are the outcomes? And the outcomes go back to what were your goals. Tell us, what are those outcomes? I always say that I think grant making dollars are going to be awarded now based on what you've done, not what you're going to do. So in a proposal, not only tell us you're going to do this and that, but we've done this in the last year.
Right.
Not the last 20 years or since the beginning of the organization. Maybe we did this last year and the last 2 to 3 years. Your grant will help us to do this, you know, so that again, you're addressing what your mission is and you're helping the foundation address what their mission is.
Right. Okay, wonderful. Great. Thank you so much for
Well, this was a
joining
pleasure.
us.
Well, have me back.
Okay,
Just
definitely.
started talking.
I know, there's so much more to
There's
share.
so much more.
Thank
But a
you.
real pleasure, thank you.
Join us again at meetadvisors.com for more wonderful conversations with nonprofit leaders.